Beautiful. Well, thank you everybody that's joining us live and those that are going to listen to this later. Obviously, this is a community on the move. So come as you are, screens on, screens off, join the chat, watch this later, be part of the conversation in real time if you can, because the guests we always bring some diversity and perspective and some real understanding of what it means to have a business, right? And keep things moving forward. So I am very excited to be here with everybody. Our special guest today is Evan. He is an inventor. He's an entrepreneur. He's going to share his story on how he created his world of momentum that's happening right now. Evan, before we kind of introduce you, and I appreciate you for being with us because I know you're on the move today, which we love. Before we get started, one thing we always do is we have the community members that are here introduce themselves so that you know who is here and committed to being part of this conversation, if you don't mind.
Love to hear you guys' story for sure.
Beautiful. Well, I'll start. My name's Adam Griggs. I am the founder of a small software startup called CLARAfi. I absolutely love bringing these conversations to the community each and every month. And I am so privileged to be connected to each and every one of you. And I'm just very excited. So I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan with the GoDaddy team.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see a lot of you again. And Evan, it's so great to meet you.
My
name is Jonathan, and I'm on the GoDaddy team. I work a lot in engagement strategy and how to build communities and conversations online. Again, so grateful to Adam for always bringing us together and for helping to make these incredible conversations happen. What else? Oh my gosh, I got a busy summer. I got a busy summer where we're starting to do a push for the new book that's coming out. Patrick, you and I, being an author, oh my gosh, we have so much. It's such an exciting time, but I actually hate the summer. I hate summertime. I'm from Western New York, and I like when there's so much snow you can't get out of your driveway. So I'm going to coast through this season, and seeing all your faces has made this a lot easier on me. So thank you for being here. Amy, let's go.
Yeah, hey, I'm Amy Benzowitz. I work at LB Digital, and I'm all about maximizing results for marketers using customized audiences for digital marketing, for direct mail, for CTV advertising, anywhere you name it. So I'm happy to be here. Nice to meet you, Evan. I'm excited to hear about what you have to say.
Hey, Amy, where you stay at exactly, or where you live at currently?
So I'm in Connecticut.
Okay. Oh, okay. Very nice. Okay.
Yes. How about you?
Columbus, Ohio. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I love Columbus, Ohio. I'm in New York. I'm in New York City, but I used to work for a company called BarkBox, and they have their whole customer support team is out there, and they would fly me out every now and then, and we'd go. I wouldn't even work. I'd just go walk around the North Market? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. The one.
I'd get emails. They'd be like, "Where are you? I'm busy."
Yeah, they have one in Dublin too now and everything as well. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, you'll have to check it out.
I love it there.
You know, I never thought I would say that I represent the West Coast, but we got New York, Connecticut, Ohio, and I'm in Illinois. So I'm representing the West Coast, and I'm loving it. Yeah, even though I'm in Chicago. So I am, unlike Jonathan, I hate the snow, and I live in Chicago, and I love the summer. So I'm the founder of PK Solutions Group, and we specialize in sales and leadership differentiation consulting.
Yeah, thanks to everybody that's here live and being part of this conversation. As you can see, we've got people from all over the country, a diversity of backgrounds and understanding and perspectives. And really, this is a collaborative conversation. That's why we do these, right? It is, yes, we're going to learn a little bit about you, Evan, and what you've got going on and kind of how you've made the world happen around you. But we want this to be a conversation because the best way to discover is through communication and conversation. So, Evan, why don't you introduce us to who you are, what is Alphamated, and kind of, where you're headed right now, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So, hi, everybody. My name is Evan Duignan. I'm the founder and CEO of Alphamated. Alphamated created a product called the Roller Express. So it's the world's first machine that automates the silverware rolling process on a napkin for the hospitality space. And we are actually just released to the restaurant not too long ago. So super excited about that and everything too. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Congrats. I love that you're actually in the restaurant testing this. And I love that you're an inventor. I mean, that's pretty cool to be able to go out and tell people, like, what do you do for a living? I'm an inventor. Like nobody
Yeah,
knows
yeah,
to say that,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, it's I have a patent granted from the USPTO office, and it showed up the one day and it was like in a FedEx envelope, and I was like, I might throw this out. I'm like, no, don't open it up, see what it's all about. And it had an American inventor on it though too, and it was a really cool moment. Honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. Yeah,
Yeah, it's got to be surreal. I mean, number one, just to have a product that's got your name on it and it's patented. I mean, that is something that very few get to, right? And we know that we know the world is filled with inspiration and ideas. So if you don't mind, would you mind just kind of backpedaling with us and give us a little bit of the down low on what got Evan from idea to reality here? I mean, what was the moment where you realized this has got to happen? Like I got to make this happen.
yeah. I think I started with the mentality of Plan B is another way to make Plan A work, and made a real commitment to that too. That was the first thing. Um, to say everything that it took to get to this particular point would be like it would take forever, to be honest with you. But if I were to give people a piece of advice on that regard, I think uh, once I had the idea and the thought within my head too, the ultimate motivation was going out and talking to people who are actually going to look to purchase what I was doing too. Because I think there's a difference between having an idea and something that you can sell, i.e., a product or service, though, too. And so being able to bridge that gap and everything and talk to industry leaders and start to do the entrepreneurial math in your head, you're like, oh, if I can sell 10,000 of these or something like that, I'll be a multi-billionaire like a couple times over though too. And I think that had a direct impact on like my inspiration or motivation, so to speak, too. So that's definitely something I would say that helped that whole process out for sure. Yeah.
And I think that's valuable. You know, there's so many people right now that are in the midst of the year. We're halfway through, and a lot of people are either trying to reinvent themselves or recapture themselves. One of the things I heard you say was Plan B was another way to make Plan A work.
Yep.
When you've got an idea that nags at you, it's an inspiration that has to happen, and you really, really start seeing this as a big picture dream, which is what you did. You know, there really is no other way other than making it happen for yourself. And I love that you went out first and you started actually asking your potential customers what the expectations of the potential was out there, because then you started to not only see that your idea was valid, but it was possible on an economic side. And that's a big deal for so many people, right? To be able to go out there and say, I can make a living doing this. Like what a crazy thought, you know, and I guess,
yeah. 100%. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah. So were you an inventor before, Evan? I mean, let's just cut all the red tape here. Let's get real. Were you an inventor before this happened?
No, I really wasn't like at all. I tinkered with like other I sold Reese's like door to door and stuff like that when I was like really young. I flipped like shoes and stuff like that, but I never was really like on the invention side of the coin too. I think it was really yeah, I kind of like fell into it more or less, more than like kind of had like an actual like I want to be an inventor. I didn't start from like I want to be an inventor. I'm like I want to create this, and it just so happens to be an invention and everything too. So I think that's where I led with too. But no, no, I will say I have no engineering background experience prior, no invention experience prior, but I like to impress upon people that I did not let that stop me though too. I think that's the big differentiational factor point between people who have an idea and people who follow through is whatever like self-imposed obstacle they put on themselves. I tell myself spend 5% of my time on the problem and 95% of the time on the solution. And so if I come at it from that mindset though too, I think it just kind of falls in place more or less.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that you've got the tenacity on wanting to make it happen, but beyond that, you've got this authentic self that you really didn't know it all. You just knew you had an idea you wanted to bring to life. And, you know, the world is so much more connected than it ever has been. I mean, obviously, a lot of us were pushed into this hybrid reality of reaching through the screen, meeting people we've never met before, creating relationships across sometimes the world, and really finding out that things that weren't, within reach are actually more in reach than we ever knew. So talk to us a little bit about making that happen. I mean, you looked at an industry, right? An industry that is related to dealing with people and labor, and it's like a physical environment. And you said, I can do something about this. And I know you have a passion built around that. We've kind of talked about that in the past, but talk to us about like knowing that you wanted to impress upon possibility of helping these people in the serving industry and in the hospitality industry, and what it took for you to get out of your own way and ask for help. I mean, can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, I will say I don't have sympathy, but I do have empathy, right? And I think having empathy in the regard of having previously worked in the restaurant, had me in a good, avenue to start to get involved with the industry, so to speak. That's definitely one portion of it too. Um, as far as talking to people in the industry and kind of getting involved with that, it really developed, I think, a process when I just started to talk to people and just I kind of had to feel it out too because I wasn't sure, right? Like I didn't have like full blown confidence I have now, right? I was kind of like, is this even worth pursuing? Like, where can I go and everything to get like real, honest, genuine feedback? And then I'm just like, well, just the quickest path is like from point A to point B, right? And so I just started to just ask people, not on a sense of like a sales side, so to speak, right? But more so like, hey, personal feedback. If you were me and you were trying to be successful at this, what angle or what would you start to think about too? And almost like if you or me gave some sort of buy-in where they're like, man, their own brain started like, wow, if I did this, and have you thought about talking to this person more or less? So I got them engaged and kind of made them a part of my thoughts instead of like having a bunch of like curated questions to ask them, so to speak. Because I went through that process of like, do I come up with a list of like 30 questions to ask them or something? I did that, but I learned it's a lot more effective when you just have an open dialogue of like, hey, I'm here and I'm trying to get there. If you were me, because I don't really know, what would you do? And just asking a bunch of people over and over and over again.
Yeah, I love that, man. First of all, and Jonathan, I know you got your hands up, so I'll turn it to you in a second. But I love that you said you've got empathy, not sympathy, number one, because it means your heart's in the right place. You're not trying to solve somebody's problem for them. You're trying to create an impact that's near and dear to your own heart because you've been in the environment. And so many of us see that where we see a problem and we're in the environment and we want to create a solution. And when you actually open it up to conversation that's collaborative and you can visioneer together, excitement grows, energy grows, and people want to give you feedback. They want to give you opportunity. They want to help build that dream. And you start learning a lot of things that maybe you would have second guessed or been too afraid to ask, or even getting connected to people that you would have never met before, right? Because they see, wow, Evan's head's in the right place. He knows the right direction to do this. Let's make the connection. And I love that. So thank you for sharing that. Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm kind of echoing a lot of what Adam said, but I really appreciate how you have experience in the restaurant industry. Like that's the thing that I have so much trouble with sometimes if I'm out to dinner or something and someone is complaining about service or someone is, talking about something that's a very surface issue. Like I worked as a server for years. I will always give the server the benefit of the doubt because we know firsthand like, how awful things can be that is completely out of their control. And taking that, like being able to say, I'm trying to solve a problem because I know it's a problem from experience. Even if it's not something that you've done for years and years and years, like you work as a server for a week and you already know that is something that needs to, right? You know that is something that needs to be navigated. And it makes it so much more of a, it makes it so much easier to your point earlier about like trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B and putting your ego aside to get there, right? And really asking questions and asking people to help you there. No one's going to tell you that like, this invention that you made, that this is not solving a problem. No one is going to tell you it's not solving a problem. But how amazing to be able to approach it from a way of, this is not something that I saw to make money off of. This is not a problem that I saw because I want to jump in and just like try and make success off of this thing that I see. It's I want to try and help other people to have a better experience doing this work, because I firsthand know how this has impacted my time, as a server working in a restaurant. And it's so much easier to especially if it's an invention and it's something that I have to be sold on, or quote unquote sold on, or believe in, to know that it's coming from someone who can say, like, this is not a problem I'm solving because of sympathy, it's a problem I'm solving because of empathy. I mean, Adam, you said it, Evan, you said it, it really does it. It does so much to underline the work that you're doing. And I feel like that translates to a lot of different, industries and a lot of different entrepreneurs and inventors. You can tell when someone is passionate about this for so many reasons outside of just, I want this to be successful. And I think that's really, really remarkable.
Yeah, of course. 2 points. Going back on people working in the service industry. I have a big thing where, like, it should be almost a requirement that people work in either retail or a restaurant for 90 days minimum. And then you'd have a much higher level of compassion and everything. That's first point and everything. Second point, I think everything that's been going on with trying to develop this, and the amount of times I've wanted to quit too, I'm just like, I don't want to do this development process anymore. Like, there's probably something easier. But when I started on it, it just made sense to get it done too, right? And I think when I was like, it makes sense for this to happen. It makes sense for it to be within the space and within the establishment. Like, the value is there. I don't have to, like, this is not ever something I have to, like, hard sell people on too, right? And it's interesting, like, I want to be successful with this though too, but I think I started at it from a right angle of, like, this makes sense. If I was an owner operator or an employee in a restaurant, I would want this in there too, and then I'll figure out the next portion of it though too. But, like, the value was where I started from, not wanting to be successful. Like, being successful is one thing, but being valuable is something else too, right? In order to be successful, you need to be valuable though too, right? And some people try to be successful without being valuable, and that doesn't really work. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. I love the win-win scenario, and the fact that you went from aligning your values with becoming a value to this industry, right? That's a big deal, because again, your heart's in the right place.
Yeah, Evan, that last thing you said, by the way, it's very easy to miss it, because what you said was value versus price. And that's what makes the difference. Price is what you pay, value is what you get for what you bought. And I love that. So a couple of things that I'm really, really curious about. What you've invented is phenomenal, obviously. And Jonathan's echoing quite a bit, because he's been that server. He's had to roll the silverware. So
I was so bad. I was such a bad server. I'm sorry, Patrick. I was so bad at that job.
well, but that leads to my point. So I'm looking at, I want to know, who is your ultimate decision maker on this? Because you could run into, you call on, let's say, the restaurant owner, the owner of the a big food service industry, whatever, and they could say that's nice, but it's not necessary. Or they could say, you're taking really an aspirin approach and I need vitamins, right? So how, with all the costs that are involved in that industry, like waste of food and turnover of inventory and employee theft, and you picked rolling of silverware, I want to know, I want to hear, what are the types of objections? Did you run into people going, yeah, it's nice, but not necessary? Because you're probably not selling this to a Jonathan, because he'd say, yeah, absolutely, I hate that. But you're probably talking to the person who owns it and says, you know what? They're going to go over there and roll silverware, or they're going to go over there and scrub the floor. I don't really care, as long as they're working while they're on the clock. What were the things you ran into?
So I think being everything to some people and not something to everybody, and remaining in that lane and level of focus too. So this is a product that I recognize that is particularly focused on, like, higher volume establishments. So the mom and pop taverns, as much as I want to be able to address them at some point too. That's probably years down the road at this point and everything, but right now focusing on that. I think two things. One, there's the law within the hospitality space called the 80-20 principle, that's quote unquote playing in my favor, if you want to call it like that, which essentially states that 80% of a server's time has to be allocated towards customer facing work, with only 20% being allocated towards side work, i.e. rolling silverware. And if they bridge that gap in like an hour threshold, say it's 30% of that hour as opposed to 20, then they go from the tip wage to the minimum wage, which is sometimes a 3x jump. And rolling silverware, for instance, if you have someone go in for a 5-hour shift and you have them have to roll silverware for an hour and everything, then you're already like floating on that line. So that's been a big value proposition. There's always things to do in the restaurant space. If you're bored, you're cleaning. Like it's just like you're cleaning the hood vents or something crazy, right? But I think it really came down to just like, what are you looking at it from, like pure time stance of what are like the huge chunks, so to speak, that are taking up the most time, so to speak, too. And if rolling silverware was a 10-minute ordeal and everything throughout the restaurant at all times and everything, then it would be a non-factor too. But you have like multiple people spending hours doing it though too, and that's where I think it raises the flags, where I think if it was a lesser time allocation, it wouldn't be a non-bother. And then yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And I think that the people that you're talking to probably started early on in their career doing that. And so they have
Yeah.
that, they totally have that. Yeah, I think you have that predisposition towards wanting to agree with you about that. And I think it's
Oh
smart
yeah.
to go to the higher end.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you can talk about customer facing time, that's all value.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many like unsaid ROIs that come from that though too, whether it's building a rapport, upselling on drinks or like desserts or something in regard to. The way I phrase it to people is, imagine instead of having to roll silverware, you have someone just float around the restaurant and ask, do you want an extra drink or do you want dessert? Like you'd probably make up whatever difference and everything just by having someone just be able to tend to that, so to speak, though, too. So, yeah, there's multiple. You got to look at not only the piece of technology, but you have to look at the ecosystem as a whole and the ecosystem that plays into. And then once you throw it in the ecosystem, there's multiple factors to look at and multiple value propositions. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great question as far as like defining the audience and your intended market there, especially coming from somebody who invented something brand new, and you're kind of starting from the top down, where most people start from the low hanging fruit and try to work their way up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's got to be a pretty curious environment that you're in there too, Evan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Evan. This has been really interesting. I really like hearing about how you built your business and your product. I really like what you said before about having no self-imposed obstacles. And I think that's so important that, everybody can learn from that, whether they're in business for themselves, inventing, or no matter what you're doing, even in your personal life, because I think there's so much that we do impose on ourselves. And I love that you said, if I need an engineer or I need whatever, that can be figured out. I just have to figure out the business plan.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so kudos for that, for
Yeah.
going beyond what you know and still creating. I do have one question for you.
Of course.
I'm wondering, have you created or tried to create anything else? Because I think I read just this morning that like Einstein tried a million things before he got it right.
It's funny. Wow. Yeah. So I actually did have one thing I tried to create. So this is a funny story. So one of the big things I did is I was a really big reader. I haven't done as much now, to be honest. So I'm more on the Audible podcast side, ironically, when I'm like trying to digest information too. But I read a bunch of books and I was at the library, and there was a bunch of white iPhone charger blocks, right? And all the iPhone charger blocks all look the same, right? And I didn't want to lose mine, and so I created like this wrap that goes around a block that has some self-identification, and then you could have like pictures of like your dog or something like that too as well. It was called personalized electronics. And it was like this like little wraparound aluminum thing that went around the block, and it would help you identify like which charger is yours, so you don't lose your charger and have to buy like another one when it's lost within like 6 other chargers plugged into the same port and everything too.
It's a good question. You know, coming
Yeah,
from the invention space, you gotta
yeah.
go through some trials there. And it's funny because it kind of brings it full circle, because obviously you saw that as an inspiration, you saw that as a reason to create something, and you didn't ever really move forward on it. You know, it was interesting.
Yeah.
And we're talking about inventing our future, right? And trying to get rid of these self-created obstacles. Well, one of the obstacles you've talked about is knowing your craft or knowing the industry you're going after. You know, a lot of these books, a lot of these mantras tell you that if you want to get rich or you want to get, you know, successful in business, write down the biggest problems in the world and try to solve one of them. Well, that's great. But if you don't understand the industry and the reason that problem exists, you're giving yourself your first obstacle, right? So I know you are kind of already at this stage of this catalyst, right? You've got funding, you're already testing with big restaurant chains. You're really on the upside of where people that are inventing the next big thing for themselves want to be. Let's talk about like do's and don'ts for that. I mean, obviously one of the things we've talked about is knowing the industry, right? So the world is very, very connected. We have the capability to find anybody that's got a skill set that can help us bring anything to life, but knowing that industry is a big deal. So, you know, how did you decide, number one, that you had enough experience in the industry, right? Is there a defining line mentally? And then how do you have the confidence, or when did you find the confidence to start asking people for some tangible help, right?
You know, I just wanted to get it done. I just kind of willed it to victory, more or less, too. I didn't, to say I like had all the answers, I'd be lying to you too, but I was willing to figure out the answers too. I know I had baseline level, like I want to figure this out, and I have some industry experience, but the industry experience between when I first started on the idea to now is night and day different, right? Too. And so I think I started at baseline and just wanted to take it further, more or less too. And then it just kind of really developed from there. That'd be probably one portion of it too, for sure. Yeah. What was the second question though?
When did you know you had enough confidence to start asking for tangible help, like going to this manufacturer or even approaching people for funding?
I think the biggest thing, and I would impress upon people, is I didn't want to have a woulda, coulda, shoulda. Like the alternative, like people are like, oh man, this is really hard. I'm like, well, the alternative is not to do it, right? And that didn't look too good. And so I'm like, all right, well, I want to be able to just like take it forward. And confidence is an earned trait too. Like belief is something that you can conjure up within yourself though too, but confidence comes through repeatable actions and like doing things over and over though too. And like being able to have an identity that ties up with your action sets, I think is the true definition of confidence too. Like you are what you say you are, more or less too, and carrying it forward like that regard. Honestly, yeah, it was just I didn't give myself an option though too. I think the burn the bridge mentality too, of just like I'm getting it done. Like what's Will Smith say or something? I've seen it and everything. I just got to wait for everybody else to see it, more or less too, in order to have it come to fruition. And it just really was that too. And then the confidence developed through, you know what? I'm just gonna call this person who has no business talking to me real quick. Let's just see what happens and everything. If they say no, all right, cool. I burned through 3 minutes and everything. If they say yes, wow, this is going to be a crazy insight too. And I think once I just had the tenacity or just the confidence to just pick up the phone and just be like, hey, here's what's going on too. And then just like be okay with people like not even answering the phone, and then just keep it on too. Like I made hundreds of thousands of phone calls and everything too, like to even get to this point and everything too. And like my confidence level on the 10th call is a lot different than the 10,000th call. But I impress upon people, like you just got to think about the alternative. The alternative is to sit there and have an idea ruminate in your head for the next 10 years that you want to pull off, and then you don't pull off though too, right? Like 10 years is going to pass regardless, right? And so you might as well just go for it though too, right? Even if it's a little bit of time too, because you'll feel better because you're actually in the flow of it all, and then you'll gain energy from being in the flow.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, man. Momentum drives this energy, this creative confidence. And you and I have been talking for a long time, but you know what most people don't see are the hundreds of phone calls you make, the late night rejections that you take, and the mornings that you really have to break yourself out of that rut and start again.
No, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
And that's one thing when it comes to inventing your future. And that's why I love this topic. And I really appreciate your perspective on this, Evan, is so many people get into this rut or this moment of wanting to create more, and they start looking way out in left field, somewhere where they just don't belong. And we have an experience economy where so many people come from so many different backgrounds, and you've got so much credibility or perspective in like each individual person that yes, there are things that are very, very possible for you, but you've got to start asking the hard questions. Where do you want to be in 10 years? Does this matter enough to you? Do you have enough empathy and understanding in this industry to want to make a difference? And if you do, you have the courage to pick up that phone over and over and over again and try to meet these people and ask these questions, because yeah, you don't know it all, and you're never going to know it all, because if you knew it all, you would have already done it, right? And there's nothing exciting about that. So playing this infinite game of success comes down to having the confidence to continue no matter what, and raising up your identity along the way. And Evan, I've seen you do that time and time again, from when you were asking for funding and moving forward to demonstrating and going to these big trade shows, you know, all the way back to when you were just So these are the wonderful things that I love that you're sharing, because it's all about mental toughness. It's all about the do's. Do understand your industry, do understand that you've got skin in the game, do understand that you have some experience. Don't count yourself out. Don't discourage yourself because you don't do it all, and don't throw it to the wayside because it's going to take too long, because sometimes 10 years goes in the blink of an eye, and it could have taken you just a couple of years to make a difference in an industry and a difference for your life, your family, and everything else. So I really, really, really appreciate you for all you've shared on that today.
Yeah, I will say, and piece of advice, time and time again too, that I give people is, a lot of people have like an idea or something that they, or a venture that they want to pull off, and they don't have the expertise or the knowledge. I swear, equity and cash compensation and partnerships are your friends, not your enemies. If you're, the way I phrase it to people is, if you're able to maintain majority control over your respective organization, but then bring in a strategic partner, which is an value add to the organization too. Yeah, you may only have 70% of the company as opposed to 100%, but now you have an actual value add partner that should carry you farther, as opposed to having an idea that was quote unquote dead in the water and you had nothing with it though too. But if you're able to actually entice people to be a part of your mission too, like you'll go so far though too. And it also have you own a business and not work in the business. And then you also have the delegation aspect and leverage and peace of mind that you wouldn't have normally had if you didn't have those partnerships. So look to that as your friend, not your enemy though too. I want to get into other ventures outside of this too. And automatically I'm already thinking about how can I structure some sort of equity or partnership in order to bring people on that add in the stop gaps that I don't have right now, whether that's cash or like or knowledge basis or anything of that sort. Yeah.
And I appreciate you for sharing that you've still got more on the horizon. I mean, that's a big deal for somebody who's already in this trajectory of success. So thank you for that. And I really, and Lindsay, I know you've got your hand up, so I'm going to turn it over to you in a second, but I have to align with you on the 70% of something is better than 100% of nothing. A lot of people see it as black and white, but really, if you spent 10 years building something worth 100 grand and you control all of it, is it just as good to that market and that industry? Or would it have been better to take 70% of, you know, millions of dollars in that industry, change people's lives, and really get out there and do all the good you can do? Possibility comes through partnership. Collaboration is the best catalyst to success you'll ever find, and it's the best way to discover anything you don't know. And at the end of the day, yeah, we can all get online, we can read the books, and we can try to learn it, but time is sometimes against us. And if we want to have real impact, we've got to get out of our own way and start collaborating a little bit better so that we can invent this future together. So Evan, thank you for that. Lindsay, I'm going to turn it over to you.
The last thing you said reminded me of a tangent that I've been on recently, watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary. Has anyone watched that, Joey? If you haven't, you got to watch it, because who knew? That man is like literally.
Pumping iron? Yeah.
The what?
Pumping iron you're referring to?
Yeah, no. Am I? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. For
No.
Arnold
No,
Schwarzenegger.
it's a 4-part series
It's on
where like, the
Netflix.
first episode.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Athlete, actor, and then American.
Oh,
Those 3
okay.
parts.
No,
It's
I didn't see
phenomenal.
that. Okay.
It's
yeah.
super good, but the
Yeah.
persistence and like the single-minded, like, I have a vision, I'm going to make that happen. I don't know how I'm going to make that happen, but I'm going to keep taking small steps. And anyway, so when I first raised my hand, I was thinking about that idea of just doing it anyway. Just maybe I'm not great at picking up the phone, but I won't be great at picking up the phone unless I start picking up the phone. And then eventually I get good at it, right? So it's this idea that faking it until you make it is not
A bad
it's
thing.
not like a gross term. It's actually part of becoming. Like faking is actually part of becoming if you have a good intention around that. So I wanted to ask you, where's one area or one skill in your life where you faked it first and then now you're like, yeah, that's the thing I do. I'm just a man at that.
I did not know what equity was when I first got into conversations or how to do capital raises or anything of the sort. A lot of the terms, so to speak, I didn't even know the definition of, let alone how to use it in a sentence too. So I had to kind of just like fake, yeah, I know what you're talking about, and throw in like a little tangent or something like that too. But it wasn't like anything else. Like I knew exactly what was happening at all times though too. I mean, hell, I think a lot of everything I've been doing is fake it till I make it, honestly though too. I just kind of had to believe that I had to reverse engineer like, hey, I'm going to be at this point too, but I'm not at this point. So I need 100 steps needs to look like one step. It's going to be one step right now too, and be okay with that, because I know what the 99 steps are going to produce 100 steps too, and kind of working myself backwards, so to speak. And so actually, it's funny, being okay with fake it till you make it too. I've never had someone who's actually made it and actually started from made it and everything. You have to actually I'm starting from
Fair
nothing.
point.
I mean, like, you don't become real without trying to do something you haven't done before too, right?
Yeah, that was a good question. I really appreciate the fact that you just hit on that. Never known anybody that started from made it. It's funny because we watch these documentaries, we read the big stories, and sometimes we drool over the fact that somebody else has made it so far in life, and we forget that they too came from somewhere. They too had a moment where they were questioning their identity. And at the end of the day, taking something from idea to reality comes down to personal confidence. Understanding that even though you don't know it all, you can make it happen. You can get it all because you know that you have your heart in the right place, your mind open, and your community ready to support you. And I think that that's so powerful, because that's the only way to really define what that destination of the future is going to be, right? You reverse engineer that, you write the ticket, you get on the train, and you make it happen. So thank you for that. And that's a great question, Lindsay. It looks like Patrick's got his hand up, and then we're going to kind of round this conversation out, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just an echo of what Lindsay asked, which is a great question, and what Evan just said, because I think people, when they hear fake it till you make it, I think they stop that sentence at fake it. Like that person's being phony. And I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You're on a journey of discovery. And just to again, kind of play into that Arnold special on Netflix, one of the themes he kept bringing out, and as wildly successful as this man is by everybody's measuring stick, he just kept talking about how he couldn't do everything he did without help. And I see that in everything that you're doing. Like your fake it till you make it led you to people who could help you figure it out instead of fake it, and that's part of the process. So I think I think those are two valuable things that I was just hearing from there, and I just wanted to say something about it. So
really appreciate this conversation today, because I feel like it's been real. It's been very open and discussing what it actually takes to really drive not just a conversation with those around you, but a conversation in your own head, in your own heart. You know, Evan, one of the things that I love about you and I being connected is we met at a tech happy hour. And when you go into these environments, everybody in here knows computers, knows how to code. And then you and I met, you're like, I invented this thing that rolls.
Like three out of left field. Yeah.
What? Like, and then the relationship has grown, and we've really shared a lot with just not just like the perspective and what's going on in our world and just supporting each other, but learning from each other, right? How those conversations happened, and then continuing to build confidence through that community. When we have connection and we've shared this visioneering, this possibility that could come to light for us, and people have garnered some of that success for you or connected, they've bought in and they want to share that and celebrate that, and they're protective of that. So I love that that's what you're building, because you've really got this community of people behind this invention. You've invented the future of this object, this thing that's going to impact the industry, but you've also shown others that, yeah, if you have just a little bit of experience and your head and heart in the right place, like the world is so much more possible than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, I love that, Adam. And yeah, I appreciate you being a sounding board too for all and giving me advice and feedback throughout this process too. So many times I have like a certain thought in my head, I have a viewpoint perspective, and I just for some reason keep looking at it at the same angle. And then we talk, and then I'm like, it's one word or something, but it's like, man, I didn't even think about it like that too. And it got me like, you know, on a different trajectory, and I gained a lot of value from that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, man, that's what it's all about, supporting each other. I think, you know, for the final piece of the do's and don'ts when you're inventing your future, don't discourage yourself and don't count yourself out, because the best thing you can do is keep on keeping on. Don't ever quit and don't give up. If your heart's in the right place and you know enough people, it's going to happen. And we know it, guys. Like the technology is here, the community is here, the opportunities are here, and people want to help each other. So I really, really appreciate you, Evan, for sharing that. And I know that our relationship is an example of that, and everybody that's on this call is an example of that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the other thing that I took away from this, on top of everything that you said, was how important it is to ask for help, even if you're not surrounded by people who are in that exact place that you're in, that same industry that you're in. Like, you can be an inventor exclusively, and you can go talk to people who have never invented a thing, but they still work in, they understand the value of providing value, right? They understand the value of how success is not just something you can snap your fingers and get. So even if someone's not in your industry, you find like-minded people who understand these, you know, very fundamental aspects of what a business is or what success looks like, and you can lean on them. And that is it. The only thing that says about you is that you're willing to go as far as you can to make something as best at, you know, the best that it can be for your customers. And that, again, it says such volumes about you and about the product that you make and the products that you're going to, you know, to make in the future.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I've learned that passion is an infectious trait or quality with people too. Like, you talk to me about what I got going on and I'm geared up, like I'm hyped up. I like to talk about what I'm talking about too. And I think that gets people like engaged too, because they're like, wow, Evan actually cares about what's going on too. This is so refreshing. Like, and so I think there's some relationship there where people gain a lot of value from that too as well. So yeah.
Yeah, man, people love to talk about what they're passionate about. It really builds that. So, you know, thank you so much for sharing your hour with us today, Evan, and kind of giving us a 30,000-foot view of what it's like to be an inventor, to create something, and really defining what is community inside of entrepreneurship, right? You have this beautiful community that's helping to catalyze this journey that you're on. One of the things we love to do, Evan, is to continue the conversation, and we want to do that with everybody that's here live and those that are listening to this later. So where can we send people to connect with you and continue to build together?
Yeah, so Alphamated is the company, ALPHAMATED. Evan, EVAN, last name Duignan, DUIGNAN on LinkedIn. And then at Evan all day on all social media platforms too as well. So yeah. Follow me, I'll follow you back.
One thing we love about this community is continuing the conversation. So we'll share the links, of course, when we post this recap. But Evan, thank you so much. I know you're on the move. You're going to a wedding and you're having a lot of fun building your business. That's what it's all about. So travel safe, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.